Hello and welcome to Inside the Americas. I'm Rochelle Ferguson-Buyahi. Coming up in this programme, the latest Russia-related scandal. Donald Trump Jr. insists his father had no idea he met with a Russian lawyer to try and dig up dirt on Hillary Clinton. A Salvadorian woman is sentenced to 30 years behind bars for giving birth to a stillborn baby. And Venezuela's opposition leader Leopoldo Lopez is released from prison and placed under house arrest. But first, President Donald Trump's eldest son has insisted his father knew nothing about a meeting he held with a Russian lawyer to dig up dirt about his campaign rival Hillary Clinton. While speaking to Fox News, Donald Trump Jr. dismissed allegations of collusion and described the meeting as just a nothing. Well, Trump Jr.'s interview came after he released an email chain in which he wrote he would love to receive compromising information about Clinton. For more, our correspondent Philip Crowther is in Washington. Philip, so Donald Trump Jr. has now become embroiled in this scandal. Tell us more.
Donald Trump Jr. is very much at the heart of this story, and that is actually a bit of a surprise. There are others who also seem to be involved because they were at this meeting that Donald Trump Jr. had at Trump Tower, of all places, with that Russian lawyer. Jared Kushner was there as well. He's the son-in-law of the US president and one of his closest advisors. And then there was Paul Manafort. He was at the time the campaign chairman, so someone very, very high up the totem pole as well. This is hugely significant because it is the very first time that we have documentary evidence of someone inside the Trump campaign and someone very high up inside the Trump campaign willing to take information from the Russian government, at least that was what was being offered in the email, and use it against Hillary Clinton. That's why this is such an important story.
The Trump presidency can't shake Russia, can it?
The White House would love to concentrate on other matters different to the Russia investigation, or rather investigations. The White House would like to talk about the healthcare reform that might make its way through the Senate very soon. It wants to talk about tax reform, another promise from the US president. It might want to talk about success on the battlefield against the Islamic State organization. But the Russia story will not disappear. Now, there are many reasons for this. First of all, the White House is being awfully secretive about anything that has to do with Russia, any contacts the campaign team might have had. Many campaign members have lied. Members of the White House have lied as well. And then there is Donald Trump himself, who seems to add fuel to the fire by tweeting about this story just when you think it is disappearing. It won't go away anytime soon, simply because there are investigations underway and because there is very good journalism happening. None of this email exchange between Donald Trump Jr. and go-betweens with the Russian government would be public without the investigative reporting from the New York Times.
Philip, could this actually change anything? I mean, is it a big deal?
This is undoubtedly a breakthrough moment for those who believe that there was collusion between the Donald Trump campaign and the Russian government or Russian intelligence officials, because it is the first time that there is clear documentary evidence, an actual email chain with sources, named sources on it, and that was actually released by one of the main players, by Donald Trump Jr. Such a thing hadn't existed so far. Now, names have been used in the past. We know that Michael Flynn, for example, the former national security advisor, was sacked by the White House and by the US president because he lied about what kind of contact he might have had with Russian officials. But this is much more serious, this email exchange between Donald Trump Jr. and someone promising information that comes directly from the Russian government. A lot of talk here in Washington about whether this is the big smoking gun. Probably not right now, but this might just be the tip of the iceberg, and that is something that many have always suspected when it comes to this Russia collusion story, that there is a tip to the iceberg and that there is so much more that is being hidden by the White House. Certainly, the White House continues to be very secretive about anything that might have something to do with contacts with Russia.
Philip Crowther in Washington, thank you. Next, our number of the week is 30. 30 years is the length of the prison sentence handed down to a 19-year-old woman after pregnancy complications led her to have a stillborn baby. Amnesty International has criticised the legal process, but in a country where the legislation is highly influenced by the Catholic Church, the case is not the first. Elizabeth Walsh reports.
They are demanding justice for Evelyn. Evelyn Cruz, a 19-year-old woman from El Salvador, has been sentenced to prison for 30 years. Her crime? A stillbirth after she was repeatedly raped by a gang member for months. She was convicted for failure to provide adequate prenatal care under El Salvador's blanket anti-abortion laws.
Evelyn's case is another where there are questions over what happened. There is a solid argument from the defense that the judges have not taken into account elements of forensic and medical evidence in identifying conditions in the stillborn baby.
Evelyn testified she was ignorant of the pregnancy, and experts have been unable to verify whether the baby died in her womb or after she suffered severe abdominal pain and fainted last April. But the judge accepted the prosecutor's arguments, who accused Evelyn of aborting her pregnancy. Her mother brought her to the hospital, where she was then handcuffed to a bed for a week. Amnesty International says the legal process was prejudiced and called for the law's immediate repeal.
This woman is suffering from bad legislation from the Salvadorian government and from crimes committed against her. We should take into account that women in jail for these crimes are women who are poor, women who are without resources, women who do not have the possibility of adequate legal representation.
El Salvador is one of 5 countries where abortion is illegal in all circumstances. From 2000 to 2014, the country imprisoned at least 147 women, usually young and poor, after they suffered pregnancy complications. Evelyn's lawyers will appeal, but the road to justice is difficult as long as the law remains in place.
In Venezuela, clashes between security forces and supporters of the opposition broke out once again this week, with another person killed and dozens more injured. In an attempt to appease the situation, the Venezuelan government have released the man in this photo, Leopoldo Lopez, from prison. A prominent opposition figure, Lopez has already served 3 years behind bars. He's now been placed under house arrest, as France 24's Josh Vardy explains.
Back home with a big smile, Leopoldo Lopez waved the Venezuelan flag before kissing it, in front of an adoring crowd of fans gathered in front of his home in Caracas. Leopoldo Lopez was born in the Venezuelan capital on April the 29th, 1971, to a wealthy family. He studied at Harvard University in the United States, from where he graduated in 1996. On his return, he spoke out against the Chavez regime, a stance that launched him into politics. In 2000, he was elected mayor of Chacao, one of the Venezuelan capital's 5 municipalities. 9 years later, he founded the People's Will Party and stood in the 2012 presidential elections.
Today I stand before you as a presidential candidate for the Republic, and with the intention of winning the elections on October 7th, 2012. We have the faith and strength to do it, and of course we can win.
Although he didn't get close to power, he did manage to widen his support, eventually finding himself as the leader of the popular opposition against President Hugo Chavez. Leopoldo Lopez says the Chavez regime has continued under Nicolas Maduro, the president who took power after the death of the former leader. He told his supporters to take the fight to the streets.
We want to suppress the government by democratic, popular, and constitutional means, but we all want them out. This is our goal, and we say it publicly. This is not a plot.
Nevertheless, President Nicolas Maduro has called him a plotter and a fascist. Lopez has incited protest. He was behind widespread demonstrations in 2014 that saw him arrested and thrown into military prison. In September 2015, he was sentenced to 13 years imprisonment for inciting violence. But prison failed to silence him, and he frequently called for his supporters to continue protesting from his cell. In early June, he appealed to the military to rebel against the government in a video posted on social media. His wife defended this move on France 24.
Leopoldo knows what happened inside the army and inside the military. And what happened is that 90% of Venezuelan people want a change and don't want Maduro. And the army is have the same sentiment.
Leopoldo's release poses several questions. Some think it was negotiated as a tactic to calm the anger in the country that has been raging since April. If it was, it hasn't worked. The death toll continues to rise in violent demonstrations against the government across the country.
Los Angeles will host the Olympic Games in either 2024 or 2028. This after the International Olympic Committee voted unanimously to announce the host cities on the same occasion. Well, Los Angeles and Paris are the only cities in the race since several others withdrew their bids. After presenting Los Angeles' candidacy for the 2024 Olympics on Tuesday, Mayor Eric Garcetti said the city is ready to host the event in either 2 months or in 2 decades. Who hosts which of the games will be revealed in Lima in September. And in Mexico, a project called the Fraternity Wall is hoping to break the Guinness World Record by painting 2 kilometres of the US border fence. Well, the site is where President Donald Trump plans to build a controversial wall between the 2 neighbouring countries. The project's been going on for 7 months now. Organisers say some 2,000 people have taken part so far. Well, that wraps up Inside the Americas. We leave you with these images. See you again at the same time for all the news from the north to the south.